caught with his trousers down. A red-faced Des
I trusted you!
is not the only one struggling.
You're having an affair with her.
Coronation Street, 7:35 Saturday on 1.
Good evening, New Zealand. Leading tonight's news, a huge bakery burns in Auckland. The North Island faces a shortage of 500,000 loaves of bread.
Tornadoes ravaged Texas, leaving 30 people dead.
Knocked the windows out and hit all the cars, and that's about it.
And on Sports Night, booze battler John Daly's back on course after further treatment for alcoholism.
Our top story, the northern part of the North Island will be hit with some bread shortages tomorrow after fire destroyed a large Auckland bakery tonight. More than 20 firefighting appliances rushed to Stormont's bakery this evening to battle a blaze at the country's second largest bread manufacturer. Nicole Bremner reports.
More than 7 decades in the bread baking business came to a fiery end tonight. Fire engulfed Stormont's bakery, makers of more than 80 brands of bread, including Tip Top and Bergen. The alarm was raised at 6 o'clock. By the time firefighters arrived, the building was engulfed, and firefighters had an extra battle on their hands. They had to call for more hoses to fight the inferno from their aerial appliances. Eyewitnesses say the fire erupted before their eyes.
We heard somebody call out, dial 111, and then we looked inside and there was a fire up behind the top of the oven. And within a matter of about 30 seconds or a minute, it just sort of spread right through the top of the roof and got out of control.
It just exploded, like, you know, you turn around and by the time you turn back, you could just see it erupting somewhere else.
Other workers tried to fight the fire, which is believed to have started in an oven twice the size of a large truck. The workers fled, leaving behind 500,000 loaves of bread due on shop shelves tomorrow. There will be shortages north of Taupo, but the company says its bread won't be in short supply for long because production will be increased in its Wellington plant.
You know, this is our biggest bakery, most important bakery, and now we've got to make sure we get plans in place to replace the production as fast as we can and obviously get our staff back. But that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while.
And he says all the company's 100 workers will remain on full pay until a new plant can be built, although it may not be on the same site.
Our reporter Nicole Bremner is at the scene of the fire. She joins us now live. Nicole, what's happening there now?
Well, Ellie, as you can probably see, the firefighters down here are still extremely busy. These are 2 of 3 snorkel appliances that are currently being used to damp down hotspots from above because the fires keep flaring up inside the building. The road is still closed. It's been closed since 6 o'clock. It'll be closed for at least another hour, according to the fire service, and they'll be staying on duty here all night, dampening down hotspots and just keeping an eye on the situation.
Nicole, is there any idea of the cause of the fire yet?
It's been too early for them to go inside the building yet, Ellie. The roof of this building behind me here has collapsed, and the fire investigators say that's going to make their job extremely dangerous. They've tried to go inside through the back of the building twice, but fire breaking out has prevented them going any further. So at the moment they're still working on the theory put forward by some of the workers that the fire broke out in the kitchen area in a large oven, but they're going to go in and investigate further when it's daylight, and the whole situation's cooled down a bit.
Thanks, Nicole. Nicole Bremner live at the scene of tonight's bakery fire in Auckland.
The genetic revolution has moved to New Zealand. The Scottish company that brought the world Dolly the cloned sheep is setting up an even more sophisticated operation here. John Newton reports.
Dolly the cloned sheep has made PPL Therapeutics internationally famous. She sparked controversy around the world earlier this year when it was revealed she was the product of genetic manipulation. Now the company wants to use even more advanced technology on sheep in this country. It has an 80-hectare farm at Whakamaru, north of Taupo, where it aims to set up a production unit.
It's real cutting-edge technology, and it is dependent not only on sort of very high-level technology that's been developed in the company in Scotland, but they're also taking advantage of the very high disease-free status of this country.
Some sheep produce a protein in their milk which is used to treat human diseases like cystic fibrosis. Sheep like Dolly have a 1 in 100 chance of producing the protein. But the new high-tech genetic manipulation to be used here guarantees every sheep would produce the protein. The procedure involves impregnating our sheep with British sheep semen, which also contains a human gene. This gene is reproduced in the lambs and is responsible for the protein in their milk.
What is going to be produced at the end is a protein secreted by these animals. It's not as though cloned individuals are going to be injected into people.
The company has a senior researcher working at Massey University. She's collecting sheep cells, and the first was sent to Scotland for testing today. The researcher initially confirmed her company's plans for the New Zealand operation to One Network News. But after contacting her bosses in Scotland, she said she'd been instructed not to talk. PPL has the official clearances it needs. There are no regulations governing animal reproductive technology here, but Parliament is considering legislation banning human cloning. John Newton, One Network News.
The Serious Fraud Office has launched an investigation into what it describes as certain irregularities at the Accident Compensation Corporation. The move follows the unexplained resignation of its chief executive. Political editor Linda Clark has the story.
Jenny Shipley and ACC board chairman Bill Faulkner on their way to brief MPs behind closed doors. Almost 2 hours later, facing questions in open session and once more raising the alarm about Gavin Robbins' performance. The committee's been given an Audit Office report. Labour's Mark Goshi says it shows ACC's a mess, but no details can be released until it's tabled in Parliament. Bill Faulkner was giving little away, though he said Mr Robbins failed to keep the board informed.
There were some instances of non-compliance with the corporation's procedures and manuals.
Some of those procedures covered tendering out contracts.
There are instances, however, where Mr Robbins had contracted outside those tender procedures.
Is there any allegation of missing money, and if so, how much?
I don't think it's appropriate that we comment on that. To my knowledge, and I think to the chairman's knowledge, there has been no direct loss to the corporation.
Gavin Robbins has been at home in Wellington since Monday and still refusing interviews. His fate remains uncertain.
If there is anything that goes beyond performance into matters of inappropriate behaviour that could be seen to be breaking the law, then obviously there are other authorities in this country who take an interest in that.
Politicians from all sides are now concerned about the effects this affair will have on public confidence in the ACC. Having the Serious Fraud Office now called in won't help. Linda Clark, One Network News.
In world news tonight, several tornadoes have ripped through central Texas, killing at least 30 people. The storms began in a small town, Jarrell, and then moved toward the nearby state capital, Austin. Another tornado destroyed a marina and homes in Bell County. Rescuers say the death toll is likely to rise. The BBC's Samira Ahmed reports.
The menacing funnel cloud filled the horizon as it approached Jarrell. It was one of several storms that cut a swathe across 4 counties of central Texas from Waco to Austin, tossing and destroying cars, homes, anything that stood in its path and scattering the debris. Scores of people were injured, some seriously. Most of the fatalities were residents of a mobile home park, which was flattened by the tornado. Jarrell's shopping centre was also destroyed, and local people were in shock as they described their escape from the twister.
Knocked the windows out and hit all the cars, and that's about it. It didn't hit the building much, but it went right over us. But the roof is damaged.
Describe it since you saw it. Describe it.
It looked like it didn't touch ground. All of a sudden, we saw debris everywhere and just rushed everybody inside.
The authorities have set up a temporary morgue at the local fire station as the grim task of recovering bodies continues. The horror of the destruction in this small town is compounded by the fact that Jarrell was virtually wiped out by a tornado in 1989.
And despite the severity of that tornado 8 years ago, only one person died.
The man who introduced Australia to death by computerised lethal injection has invented a coma machine. In an interview to be aired on the Fraser programme tonight, Dr. Philip Nitschke said his new machine exposes the hypocrisy of our medical system. Lee Taylor has the story.
Philip Nitschke is one doctor who makes no apology for killing some of his patients.
The reality is that I came along and I gave them a lethal injection and they died. I don't know how else you describe it. Clearly I killed them. Do I have any trouble with it? Not at all, because in each of those cases I believed that what I was doing was exactly the right thing to do.
Dr. Nitschke helped 4 people die through computer-operated lethal injections under Australia's short-lived voluntary euthanasia laws. Now he's designed a coma machine, as seen in these pictures on the internet. He says it will put terminally ill patients into a deep coma they'll never wake from.
Use sedative drugs and they're administered over a long period of time, and then we argue that death is brought about by the disease process. I mean, this is hypocrisy, but that's the way we're going. We effectively load up a terminally ill patient. You can imagine they're swimming, and it's as if we're loading them up with lead until they drown.
While New Zealand lawmakers have so far rejected the idea of voluntary euthanasia, Dr. Nitschke believes it's inevitable.
I'm hopeful that in Australia, and I imagine New Zealand will follow or even lead, we'll be seeing it certainly within the next decade.
In fact, Dr. Nitschke believes voluntary euthanasia will be taken up around the world. Lee Taylor, One Network News.
Ian Fraser's interview with Dr. Nitschke will be broadcast directly following tonight's news.